Okay, hi, thanks for following us along today. Today we're doing a free giveaway contest visual inspection of a community. And we're creating it for a couple different reasons. One, we want to give back to the community we serve. And two, we're actually making a series of videos for do-it-yourselfers, mainly board members or even managers that want to walk around a community and be able to pick out the things that we're picking out with regards to construction defect or leak or maintenance issues. And we're gonna take you around so you can follow us, and as we pick through a building and say, check this out, look at this, I'd want to open this up, or I'm concerned about this. So follow me around. Okay, so here is a tailgate tool explanation of how we're looking through our buildings. And so in front of you is a pretty simple setup of tools that I use every day, and we're kind of advancing up in complexity, but pretty simple, obviously. Measuring devices, probes, knife to cut a few things, paint scraper. This is great for just demonstrating. I can stick it in something, and it'll show, you know, here's a mislap, or here's a, you know, everybody's kind of seen this, but this actually works really well. A couple of different pry bars. The old carpenter's tape. What I like about this, big numbers, so you can hold it up and really see dimension, versus a tape sometimes is kind of squiggly and you're trying to, you know, do that. So, but anyway, both of those are good. Obviously a phone or some way to take a picture, camera. Everybody has these in their pockets. Even a video is great. Notepad, or in this case, I use an iPad. It's both a camera and a notepad. So then when you step up to the next level of investigation is moisture meter. This will just tell you if things are currently wet. $300, $350, Amazon. And then when you get crazy, you can get into the FLIR cameras. So this is a real specialty of the trade. It's an infrared, $8,500. So we don't expect everybody to pick up one of those, but they're getting more and more. I mean, they do have infrared apps that, you know, have one or two lenses versus, or not lenses, but meters in them versus 30,000. So it's like different cameras. So cheap camera, you know, versus the expensive camera. That's all we're using to do a visual inspection, and then our eyes, obviously. So this is the tools. So one of the first visual clues we're seeing is the moss and algae, if you will, the green coming down the siding. And a lot of that's caused by overhanging trees and not getting enough sun, but at the same sense, it's also water. You can see the rot in the belly band there as it meets the deck. We're looking here, you can take the probe, and here's what a probe should be on a post. And then when you get into the deck joist, you can see it cracking, and it's pretty crunchy. It's pressure treated. You can see the incisor marks of the pressure treating right there. So that's good. But you can see the wear. So I'm under a deck. I'm going to take a quick visual of my deck. Again, I see pressure treated wood. That's good. I'm going to look for positive attachment from the post to the concrete. So here's a nice big bracket with big bolts. It's set off, it's sitting on a plate. Ideally, maybe it'd be sitting a little bit higher, but maybe just clean that out, you know? So here's your maintenance. Run around with a whisk broom and clean that out, because you'll see on this side, a little bit of capillary action is coming up on this post, but if it were sitting up, you wouldn't have that splash. But anyway, I'm not terribly worried about it. I see positive attachment to the foundation. Then I go up to my joists. If you want to come under here, I see positive attachment between my joists and my beam with these joist hangers. I see nails in every hole. And then I come over here. I see the same joist hanger to joist, joist to building with big bolts, okay? Ledger bolts. So I can look under here real fast and say ledger bolts, joist hangers, positive connection. It may be dirty. It may need pressure washing, but that's just part of your cleaning plan. What I'm looking at here is, again, concrete footing wall. I'm looking at the black. It's called damp proofing. It's not called waterproofing. It's called damp proofing. And damp proofing is a requirement of the code. And so damp proofing is spray on. Think of a rattle can. I'm just barely turning it black. You can see that's not really continuous. It's not a real membrane. It helps a little bit. And it works as long as this is free draining material right up against your foundation, meaning gravel, stuff like that. As long as we've got good footing drains that are taking the water away from the building. This building's on a hillside, so the water's running down. So when we have buildings sitting at the bottom of a hill, we want to see waterproofing. So think, if this were thin paint, you would see the siding coming through. If thin black damp proofing, you see the concrete coming through. So we would want to waterproof that, a different type of membrane, and pull our water away from that. Where we get complaints is the first floor unit at these step downs. You can see the bottom of the siding is wet enough to be staining. Again, I could probably see daylight out that joint. The sealant that was there is cracked and failed. A little bit more waterproofing could be done there for the time being until you reside and you put a nice flashing cap over it. So the groundwater and roof one, oops, there we go. So this is a seam in your wall, so your floor in here takes a step up, and then so this part of your wall is below grade. It's common for a hillside building, but if this isn't spatula proof, it's not waterproof. So this is a big joint here, and there's probably some moldy carpet or moldy base molding in that wall right there. We're looking at an exterior wall, and the visual giveaway is some dark staining on the T111 or similar paneling. The horizontal belly bands have some metal flashing over it. The windows have a little bit of tiny flashing over it. You can see back up on the gable panel, we've got some more staining. We've got our seam lines that are swelling and expanding, and you can actually see the bottom row of nails across the panel are swelling. You can see the soffits, the bottom side of the roof sheathing is peeling, indicating some type of moisture or water that's getting in. And then you can look at the basic windows. So here we have fogging window panes. So these panes are shot, and what I mean by pane is this is a double paned window. You can see 2 layers of glass, and inside that is that seal has failed, so it's condensing between the window. And while moss growing on the outside of your window isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's not a good thing either. There's no sealant between the window and the trim. You can see the base of wall. So concrete foundation, base of wall is right here. We're fortunate that we have a sloped footing. Some of these footings are flat and the water collects and just rolls under. Electrical panels are always an interesting thing. I don't want to stick this metal tool back there too far, but we know that water and electricity don't get along. And so right here, the water can just flow right down. There's an open penetration somewhere into your building and into your electric main. Same with your cable boxes and things like that. So one of the benefits of this project is here's the existing, and we're going to take you over to a new replacement. We know from conversations with the board and from working with them, they had the resources to do one or two of these elevations, the worst ones. And so you can see the difference of flashing details, and you can see the difference between the siding that's here now. Base of wall flashing now covers that concrete, goes up behind the siding. Nice big flashing coming over your belly bands. Even a double flashing over your window heads, protecting both the trim and the window. These are called upturned end dams, and what they do, this piece of metal flashing will never be perfectly level. It's always going to be sloped one way or the other. So if any water hits that, it's going to go to the downward slope and run down in behind your siding, unless there's an upturned end dam that it hits and kicks out. This is the difference between a sealant joint and a caulk joint or a fillet joint. So that first 3/8 of an inch is a sealant joint that's that big. And so the idea behind that, if you look on any tube of sealant, you'll see elasticity and contraction of 50% or 100%. And so if you take a gap of 0 and so you put some sealant in there to cover that crack, 50% of 0 is 0. And so that's why it breaks the second anything expands and contracts. But on 3/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch, 50% expansion on a 1/4 inch is 1/2 an inch. It can grow, it can shrink and expand in temperature and humidity. So nice big sealant joints around windows. This vinyl versus this wood or fiber cement, two different products that are moving at two different speeds of thermal coefficient. No water's coming down here. It hits here, rolls off. Nice sealant joints. You know, this is way more weather tight. So in this elevation, we'll actually clip in some damage shots where we help them with some repairs in the past, and we'll show in some of these damage shots. But what I want to take away from this view is beautiful, beautiful, and then ooh, now we get old again. Oftentimes we're asked, hey, can I do one elevation at a time? We've only got the money to do the south wall. Can we do that this year, more repairs next year? And we say, you can, but here's the problem. A, you have to have momentum and desire of the boards and the managers and things like that to keep going. Otherwise, you'll have a project that looks beautiful on this elevation and tired on this elevation. And then part 2 is just mob and demob. The contractors are out here, they're working, they have to shut down and go home. Then they have to come back, start up again, work for a while, and then shut down and go home. And so it's like any remodeling project. Remodeling is more expensive than new construction, but remodeling in phases is always more expensive than the combined sum. Okay, so here we're going to show you a picture of a properly flashed light fixture. So most light fixtures are just screwed to the siding. This one we have on a block, and we've got flashing over the block. And it just sets it out. It frames it a lot better, and it also waterproofs the electrical light fixture. Outlets, you can do the same thing. Hose bibs, gas meters or gas pipes, all the different penetrations, we would have it on a block and flashing cap. Another good angle of fixed elevation, existing elevation, and you can see flashing versus little tiny flashing. At least this is flashing, but it's tiny. You can see base of wall versus no base of wall, window details down there and new windows versus windows here. Let's not forget about carports and other structures. So again, siding, base of wall. So you can see the base of wall is just getting chunky. We're absorbing water because we're too low to the ground. This is how it should be up here. This is a very common thing we see. So we would want to put a base flashing there, raise your siding up a little bit, keep it out of the water. I'm looking at roof venting. And so the 3 little dots, every other joist bay, is fairly typical for what's called attic venting. It's called bird blocking. And so we've got 3 little holes. You can look up into them. You can see screen behind it to keep the birds from going up inside. So I'm seeing that pattern. So I'm saying, okay, there's your soffit venting for your roof system. Now I see a 5 or 6 inch hole and a 3 inch hole, both with screen on them, that the pattern doesn't line up. So I'm saying, wait a second, these are likely bath fans or some other type of interior fan, maybe a kitchen exhaust hood. And because I have screen on the inside, I don't have the outside vent duct has a nipple, if you will, that the hose or the ductwork can be attached to. I don't have that here. And so what this oftentimes means is there's a ductwork sitting in the insulation, and the thought was, get it down there as far as you can. The steam will go out the attic vents, or it'll be so close to the hole it'll go out. But what that does is cause buildup of excess humidity in your attic. So this is an indication of, you know what, send somebody up there, check it out, see if there's some disconnected ducts. So here we're looking at a couple different things. One, you can see the patch. It's about the size of a soccer ball. That was a blister in the paneling or in the panel siding caused from an improper window installation. We see it in communities all the time where the boards say, hey, look, the bylaws say something about glass replacement being an owner's responsibility. And when we've talked to lawyers about it, they say, well, glass means when little Billy's playing baseball in the house and the ball goes through the glass, you need to replace your glass. However, the window frame itself has a flange where it's nailed onto the siding, or nailed onto the framing. The siding comes over that, the trim goes over that. So actually your window frames are part of the association. And so oftentimes we'll hear or come across boards that say, well, we make the owners replace their windows when they're old. And so what can happen is if somebody does a second story window improperly, then the water comes down, damages the siding, and even comes into this window and damages the interior and around the wraps. Your great idea of making each unit owner do their own siding or do their own windows has now caused a bunch of damage. Okay, so as a follow-on to that siding, this is a T111 panel siding. It's probably 40 years old. Here's you can see a nail, and a nail driven flush. So if I hit it too hard with the hammer, you're going to see a hammerhead, but it's driven flush like it should be. Now we start seeing some swelling. The panel is actually swelling around the nail head. Here's another piece. If we can get our camera in there, you can see the dark line of the fibers and the white paint. So these lines, it's actually kind of underpainted. So what happened, paint guy is rolling it on and the roller isn't getting into these joints. So he needs to back brush. He needs to take his brush, work it in there so that we don't see wood fibers that are left exposed. And then you can see actually the edge of the siding has a little pocket in it that didn't get paint in it. The siding claim of the LP siding claim, it didn't get paint on the bottom edge of the siding because they were working here. They didn't get back up into the bottom and it swelled out. Okay, so we're on a little hillside where we can look at the roof. You can see the back of the chimneys have what's called a cricket. And so if that cricket wasn't there, the water would flow down and hit the backside of this chimney and hang out. And so you'll get some pooling or you'll get some water leaks in the ceiling right where the uphill side of the chimney and the roof face. But now with these crickets, the water runs down and diverts around the chimney itself. So that's really good. Okay, so we're in the dark shady side. Again, looking at siding. you can see we've got two things. We've got, looks like a dent or an impact. So here's a pin. I can just push it right through the siding. So sometimes these little holes are actually indicators of it's a little bit bigger than you think. I don't know if you can hear that cracking through. So that's actually a pretty big spot. This is, now I'm gonna have to replace this wall today. So this isn't a fancy inspection tool. This is something that you have in your pocket that anybody can take a look at things with. So it's just walking around. Should be hard, not crunchy. So temporary fix, I mean, the Band-Aid to this is take a bunch of sealant and pack over it and paint it. That'll get you 3 months to come back to the board, say, hey, we got a problem. Let's put a plan together. Let's at least get some type of handyman out here to replace this panel or that panel and, you know, stop the water. Water's going through that first hole. Yes, I added a couple more holes, but it's just pouring through. So yeah, I mean, it's Band-Aids until you replace the panel. We've got spacing between the stiles or the verticals of your thing that's more than 4 inches, and the code is 4 inches or less. So back in the day, these were built at about 6 inches or 7 inches. And what happens is kids would put their head through and get stuck or fall and, you know, hurt themselves or even slide through. This lattice was driven by the insurance carrier saying, look, until you fix your railings, we're not going to insure you. And so once you start getting into these railings, you're getting into thousands of dollars to replace them or adding pickets or whatever. So this is the vinyl lattice from a Lowe's or Home Depot that is cut down, put over, blocks that. It's not necessarily the structural element of the railing, but it satisfies the insurance company enough that you can, hey, you know what, let's put railings on a maintenance plan or a 2 years, 3 years out. This will keep people from getting hurt. It's a nice little fix. So if you like this video with the tips and tricks and the walkthroughs and that was helpful to you, make sure you click subscribe below. And then also click that little bell to be notified next time we post some helpful videos for you. Thanks for watching.